My Lords, I thank the Noble Lord Boateng for securing this debate and his excellent introduction, and I've enjoyed the uniformly excellent contributions to it. I think it's worth going back a step and thinking about the nature of the world in which the Covid-19 virus arrived. This is a world of massive, almost unvisionable inequality. Rich countries have drained $1.52 trillion from the global south since 1960, according to a calculation from the anthropologist Jason Hickel. And I refer to his paper in New Political Economy, which looked at how the unequal exchange in the post-colonial era, an unequal exchange, the rate of which increased dramatically in the neoliberal structural adjustment period imposed on the global south, that take us to a point where COVID arrived. The global north was drawing from the south $2.2 trillion each year in terms of unequal pricing, which is a reflection of unequal power. That's been calculated as enough to end extreme poverty in the world 15 times over. Or, of course, it could pay for far more COVID vaccines than we actually need. Of course, at the same time, we've seen destruction of natural worlds and the dumping of plastics and toxic waste on these nations. We have an economic system, a power imbalance, which sees multinational companies having far more power than do entire nations or even groups of nations. And when we come to what's happening with COVID vaccines, and here I'm very particularly pleased to be following the Noble Lady Baroness Chalker of Wolsey to pick up on her point about how we are not taking the knowledge of the world and sharing it with the world. Currently, the cost of vaccinating the world is 5 times what it should be if pharmaceutical companies were not profiteering by charging 5 times as much as it costs to produce vaccines. And these are calculations made by the People's Vaccine Alliance, which includes the African Alliance, Oxfam and UNAIDS. Pfizer, BioNTech and Moderna have been charging governments as much as £41 billion above the estimated cost of productions of vaccines. To bring this to a national level, Colombia is estimated to have paid $375 million more than the cost price of the vaccines it's been able to purchase. So they could be making, well, they are making vaccines for $1.20 a dose. COVAX is paying on average 5 times that. Now, there is, of course, a huge moral argument here, and many noble lords have been making the moral argument of why this should not be allowed to continue. But I know there are some people in politics who don't acknowledge moral arguments, so I'm going to look briefly at the economic arguments. So, the economic costs to rich countries of not supplying vaccines could exceed the costs 10 to 100 times. Essentially, we are shooting ourselves in the foot economically. The Noble Lord Oates spoke about the impact on economies in the global south, but the damage there will have huge impacts on our economies as well. And, of course, as many noble lords have noted, no one is safe until everyone is safe. There are 1 million new infections occurring in the world every day right now. And I have some expertise in the area of biology, so I'm going to venture for a second into what that means. Uncontrolled transmission of vaccine is what drives mutations, or transmission of the virus is what drives mutations of it. Each infection in an individual person produces millions and millions of viruses. Most of those viruses will be identical to the infecting virus dose. Some of them will be mutations. There's then a bottleneck where that person transmits a small dose of virus from what they've got to others. Individually cases, they'll almost certainly be the same as the original virus, but in some cases they will transmit the mutations. The more infections you have, the more get transmitted. So I'm going to finish by just looking at some figures, and the New York Times has a very handy table for the number of doses per 100 of population. Some rates. Congo, 0.1 doses of vaccine per 100 people. Haiti, 0.4. Papua New Guinea, 1.5. The UK, 138. Thank you, my lords.